the new developments in the Mueller investigation, which is clearly partisan, and day by day that's being proven as such. Also, agents that have been assigned to this investigation that are clearly partisan and biased: Peter Strzok, Andrew Weissmann.
And how about Trump's announcement about moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem? And we also have a piece today about a letter that was written from Jesus Christ to his half-brother James that was supposedly found. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more on the Truth Hour.
What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today? I want the truth!
Good morning, Truth Hour listeners.
Morning, everybody.
Welcome. Joined again here by my partner in crime.
Hey, I'm David Eagle, and I'm glad to be here.
And I'm Shane Jameson, and we are the two fools on a stool sitting here at the Truth Hour. And yet again, another action-packed week. We're grateful to have you here. We're grateful to be able to be here. And this is our point in time where Dave does the plugging and I do the listening.
All right. Yes. Join us every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have any questions, comments, you can always live chat with us. We encourage you actually to live chat with us. Give us your feedback on anything that we are talking about, anything that you want to talk about this morning. And if you're listening to this after the fact, after the live stream, you can always comment on our YouTube page. And any questions that you want to ask personally without sending it to YouTube chat, you can always email us at truthhourradio@gmail.com, truthhourradio@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook under Truth Hour Radio, here on YouTube as well. You better find us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, all the above, whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
We would appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. He's so good at doing those, and like I say every week, I think he's getting better at it. I think we're having less glitches and more success, and he is the technical know-how behind this. So
know what that means.
I get to armchair quarterback the way he does things and be critical, but you know what? The real story, the truth is, I appreciate everything he does.
He's jinxed it now. All right, now we're going to have technical glitch after
videos going off,
glitch,
sound glitches.
Something. Yes,
yeah, there we go.
Without a doubt.
It only plays into the to the lightheartedness that we occasionally have here. So
that's right. We're bringing the truth, some political deep things, and some biblical deep things, but yet still having a joyful time.
Yeah,
doing it. And
absolutely.
Every time I turn my head, I'm smacking a microphone. Every time. All right.
Hey, it looks like we got a couple people on here. I want to do a shout out to my daughter Cheyenne. Where at, Dave? You get to do it this time.
Where's she
at?
I'm going to say San Antonio, Texas. El Paso.
Thanks for playing, Dave. Wrong. El Paso, Texas.
But I do know Cheyenne's birthday is today. 23 years old. Happy birthday to you, dear.
I can't believe my oldest daughter is 23.
That makes you old.
That makes me ancient, brother.
Yes, it does.
So good morning, everybody, and we appreciate your attendance here on the Truth Hour. We have another action-packed week in store for you. Let's get started, Dave, without a further delay.
All right.
Wow, is it getting hot in D.C.? There is so much going on surrounding Mueller's investigation, and what seems to be happening, in my opinion, is, and backed up by facts, not just my opinion, is that what started out to be an investigation is become an investigation investigating itself. And the more Mueller investigates, the more we find out as Americans that there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of partisanship and a lot of bias and a lot of bad things going on.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of those things we knew, right? We knew by our gut that there was so much corruption that goes on in politics, but I think this is just brings a lot of those things to light.
Yeah,
exposes that wickedness and that evil that goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a few videos here, and we're not going to cue them quite yet. Let's elaborate a little bit. So some of the biggest stories of this past week, guys, was the revelation about a gentleman named Peter Strzok.
Okay.
And that's spelled Strzok. Okay, he's one of the top investigators underneath Mueller's team, and was up until about 4 to 6 months ago, investigating the, once again, the supposed Russia-Trump collusion possibility, which does not exist, and there is not an inkling of fact to back that a year to 16 months in. So, that's that. So, Peter Strzok, you would think, well, what's the big deal here? So, Peter Strzok was removed from the Mueller investigation approximately 4 to 6 months ago. That was open knowledge. Congress knew about that, but there's members of Congress that reached out wanting to know why he was removed by Mueller. And for some reason, Mueller drug his feet, and it's only of the last few days that the revelation came out that he was removed because of a clear conflict of interest. There were what's being deemed as clearly bias and anti-Trump, pro-Hillary texts being sent between himself and, at that time, I don't know his current marital status, but a mistress of sorts that was another FBI lawyer.
Okay.
Right? He's clearly, on one side of the fence here. And as FBI agents, you're supposed to be nonpartisan. You're supposed to be non-biased. You're not supposed to have, that doesn't remove you from being an American and having a political stance, but as it pertains to your work as an FBI agent, you're supposed to be neutral.
Right.
Above all of that.
Because you're just supposed to be enforcing the law and doing investigations
blindly, without any kind of...
Absolutely.
Right. So he's
But
guys,
we've seen that for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah.
At least for the last 8-9 years, we kind of got this, I think, instilled into us from the Obama administration that, they were going to use as a puppet, really, the FBI and other government agencies. We saw that without a doubt in the IRS.
Weaponizing.
To go against conservative Republican backers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And great point on using the IRS. Well, the very thing that's being slowly uncovered by the day, guys, is the fact that, our FBI, one of the supposedly the world's greatest investigative arms of government here, under the DOJ, has been weaponized and has been such for no telling how long. And the further we dig, the further back it goes. But anyways, let's go ahead and wrap up on Peter Strzok here. The reason that this is a big deal, you would think, okay, so he's compromised. He's clearly on one side of the fence, but that's not where it really ends. The fact that really is the conflict of interest is that Peter Strzok goes all the way back to the Hillary email scandal. He interviewed Hillary. He interviewed Uma Abedin, countless others that were tied to that. He's there
for her hiding the emails on her personal server,
on that personal server and all of that. So he interviews them. He's also come to find out Comey actually has it's definitive. There's proof through emails and other information that Comey was composing an exoneration letter before he even concluded or interviewed all of the witnesses tied to the Hillary email thing. Right?
All this time for the evidence.
Yeah, all this time we thought that was all Comey, but it wasn't all Comey. Peter Strzok was at the center of this, and Peter Strzok is the one that is actually credited with changing the verbiage in Comey's assessment from extremely careless to extremely reckless. I believe is the terminology. And one of those, I believe, the extremely reckless, or I might even be off on that. I should have wrote that down in my notes, guys, so bad thing on me. But the clear distinction being is that in the rules that makes it criminal as to what Hillary did, the verbiage about being clearly reckless with the information that she had and the way that she handled things is a criminally enforceable offense. And so Peter Strzok come in and changed it and said careless.
Yes.
So it immediately turns it in, and then you got Loretta Lynch telling Comey to call this a matter instead of an investigation. Well, the last time I checked, it's called the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Matters? No.
Right.
Investigation.
But if you've got people on the inside who you are just wanting to use as pawns to hide these things, that's exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because we know the law, and so we're going to try to circumvent that as much as possible because they did not want to give Hillary a bad name, especially, that was just horrible timing for her. When you're leading into an election,
then basically on the footsteps of it.
To have all this so new and fresh in the minds of people of all these things that have gone on that have followed her.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just an amazingly rotten, corrupt situation we have, guys, and it really saddens me that the state of affairs that we have in this country and certain elements of government is not there to uphold the law. In fact, they're in place, what I consider the deep state, the Obama leftovers, holdovers that have been there. There is an element of corruption that will all but sell their souls to keep this quiet. And it's like they had to, it's almost simple. I mean, they had to pounce on Trump coming in. They had to put something out there to make him, I think what they wanted to try to have him impeached before any of this revelation came out. And what's happened is there's been more truth come out faster than their deceptions and corruption could cover up. So the fact is the further they push, the more uncovering we see, and the less relevance comes to this Trump-Russian collusion thing, and the more relevance comes to the fact that this has been a corruption situation for a better part of a decade.
Yeah. And just I believe it was last night that they did a vote on that whole impeachment of Trump in the House. Just
my buddy Aaron
overwhelmingly just nope.
My buddy Aaron that's on here. He's always on here. I think he's busy today. I texted him earlier. He said he's going to watch it later. But he actually brought that up to me in a text here a couple hours back, and I didn't see that part. But yeah, well, as long as, let's be clear, as long as the House, as long as Republicans have the House and the Senate, the chances of an impeachment are 0 times a million.
Well, unless there's, I'm sure there might be something that any president, whether they were Republican or Democrat, depending on who the House was, if there was something. Yeah. Legitimate, that was warranted, that was illegal for a president to do, and they did it anyhow, and overstepped the bounds of the power of that office. I don't think it would matter. Well, but the reality of it is the trumped up charges against Trump. It wasn't there for impeachment. It was just all against a bias and a hatred towards him, just because of, really, in my mind, just because of the loss of Hillary in the election. Right.
Great points. And I'm not a scholar on all of this, but I do know that as far as impeachment goes, it's a political process, not necessarily a legal process. So the fact is if the Democrats got the House or the Senate back, and I'm not, once again, I'm not a constitutional scholar here, but I'm growing and learning in that every day. But as my understanding is that, see, I mean, that's the scariest thing. When we get closer to 2018, the midterms in the late 2018, about 12 months from now, the worst case scenario for the GOP and for Trump is if we lose a number of seats there and it swings back to the Dems, then all of a sudden, look at what they're pulling out of thin air to try to say for obstruction. Yeah. All they got to do is then bring it up to a vote. I mean, there's no precedence. You don't have to have proof. They just got to vote on it and push articles of impeachment and get him impeached. I mean, which is an absolute joke.
When we talk about politics, to me, the whole realm of it has been saddened by the fact that it's no longer an avenue to help our country as a whole and to help its citizens. But it seems like for the majority, I mean, there might be some good politicians out there.
There are. There are.
But for the majority, it's all about trying to help themselves.
And the establishment.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, Dave. I mean, let's make no quarrels about it. This, I'm a conservative. I'm all, and a lot of what I do is there's a lot of banter against the left. Well, but guess what? There's a pretty good portion of the GOP that would love Trump and his agenda and everything that he stands for to fall flat of its face for one reason: to conceal the ongoing corruption and the ongoing cesspool that is the self-interest.
Yeah,
and it
needs to go.
Self-interest is a plague and a cancer on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, well, let's get into some videos because I know we've already blowed 15 minutes here. So what we have here is Tucker Carlson. Big fan of Tucker. I suggest any of you out there listening or watching, put him on every night, Monday through Friday. I believe it's 8 p.m. This is another video tied into the ongoing FBI situation, so a great lesson. Here we go.
An answer to that question. We could go on. There are many examples of this, but the point is clear. the FBI is out of control, and not just in the Trump investigation, but much more broadly. An agency charged with enforcing the law clearly considers itself above the law, and that's a threat to you and every American, no matter who you voted for. Joe diGenova is a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and he joins us tonight. Joe, given the centrality of Peter Strzok in these two investigations, Hillary email and the current Trump-Russia investigations, on what pretext could the FBI be denying these texts to Congress?
It's very difficult to see how they have any basis for denying Congress access to this data. They publicly leaked the reason that he was fired, removed from the case. So there can't be a personnel reason for doing it.
Right.
And even if there were, it wouldn't matter. Congress has a right to that data. They can receive it. They have to receive it. I think what's going on at the Bureau right now is very, very serious. It's very depressing for a former federal law enforcement official. This is not your mother's FBI. What's wrong with the FBI is not the average everyday agent. They're great. It's the management at the FBI that is the problem, and that management has not improved with the arrival of Mr. Wray. I cannot understand how Chris Wray, the current FBI director, can tolerate having Andrew McCabe on his staff at this point, given his history and his track record. I think the FBI is in very serious trouble. It started with James Comey. Comey, the dirtiest cop in America, destroyed the FBI's reputation with his bizarre personal behavior beginning way before his July 5th news conference. The Bureau is in trouble. It needs a major overhaul, and if it continues to resist Congress, I believe the contempt of Congress for the current director and other people in the agency is absolutely justified.
So this is the most powerful agency in the federal government that can literally break down the front door of your house and take your freedom away, and they do that quite a bit.
Or show up at your house in the morning while you and your wife are in bed in order to frighten you like they did with Mr. Manafort. What a disgusting, awful display of raw political power, not law enforcement power, political power. I think the Bureau has been politicized by Comey. I don't know what Wray's going to do about it, but he has a short time frame to fix it.
Is it conceivable, and this was reported this afternoon, we haven't confirmed it, that General Flynn at the White House in January, newly installed National Security Advisor, meets with the FBI, talks to them. They don't tell him this is a formal interview, and it's on the basis of that that he's charged and pleads to perjury.
It was Andrew McCabe who sent those agents there, by the way. The man who...
But can you do that?
Yes, you actually can. But here's what's disturbing about it. It's technically okay to do that, but you have to ask yourself, given the history of everybody involved in that case, who were involved in the Hillary email server case, where they conducted a totally irresponsible, unprofessional criminal investigation, and then they turn up the heat on this investigation of Flynn, the same agency. This is politics. The Bureau has been politicized. You compare the email server investigation of Hillary Clinton with the investigation of General Flynn and President Trump's aides, and what you have is a despicable politicization of the Bureau. They can no longer insist that they are fair at what they're doing.
Well, it's the same charge. I mean, the same guy, Peter Strzok, apparently let the former Secretary of State off the hook for lying and then pushed the indictment on felony charges of the National Security Advisor for lying. So how is that?
Mr. Strzok has been hopelessly compromised since he expressed his political views to his paramour, with whom he was another FBI official that he was having a sexual relationship with. Strzok is no longer credible inside the Bureau. That's why he's now in the Human Resources Department.
Right. Just shakes the faith of every American in our justice system.
And it should.
And the cost is high.
There you go.
We good? That's about to play over here.
See, there we go.
Yeah, guys, so powerful piece there. One of many from Tucker Carlson, but I want to touch base real quick. Let's unpack what we just heard. What we find out here is that Peter Strzok, for all intents and purposes, was like, he was the cement that was hardening and slowing up the process during the Hillary Clinton email scandal investigation, but he was all but greasing the path and clearing the way for the upcoming and at that time newly appointed investigation against Trump and the supposed Russian collusion. Let's think about this. So then he was also responsible for, ultimately he is the agent that signed off on initiating the Trump investigation. He signed that off. And think about this double standard, guys. So Hillary's called down and being interviewed by Strzok and other agents. Well, guess what? She was never placed under oath.
Oh, yeah.
So anything she said, regardless of the relevance of truth or if it was a lie, would never be held against her. How could that be? So then, in my opinion, then they entrap through trickery. They had already had the phone conversations between Kislyak and Flynn when they went down and actually then interviewed Flynn, Michael Flynn. Unbeknownst to himself, he didn't know he was under oath. And he actually, in error, went down and talked to the FBI without an attorney. So he's hung up to dry by making false statements to the FBI based on pre-recorded, already known knowledge, basically entrapment into a conversation they already knew. They already knew the answer. They already knew that Flynn had talked to Kislyak about, but here's the facts, guys. That's what administrations do. It's called a transition for a reason. There is a transition phase between the end of an administration and the beginning of another. And in that transition phase, it is legal for everybody that is going to be a part of that team to do exactly what Michael Flynn did. Okay? For some odd reason, though, when he was asked about it, he did lie about it. Okay? But that doesn't justify the cause, okay, or the means. So the fact being is that Hillary was given a free pass. All of her team and everybody that had to do, Uma Abedin, countless other aides, were given immunization from any prosecution before there is even anything there. Mm-hmm. And then Flynn basically goes down, does the equivalent of what Hillary's been proven to have done, and he's facing felony charges, has been forced to flip and turn on Trump. Look at the hypocrisy here, Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible. I mean, he's paving the way. You want to talk about a conflict of interest. And here's the other thing. Why would Mueller have him at the head of the investigation? You don't think Mueller, the all-knowing, all-powerful Mueller that everybody said is bipartisan, he's a good guy, why would he have Peter Strzok in a position to be signing off on this new investigation, being at the center of it, and only just now, a few months ago, being pulled off of it? And then the fact that he was pulled off why he was pulled off wasn't made relevant until this week.
Mm-hmm.
It stinks to high heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you not know his stance and his backing of the whole left?
Yeah.
Not just Hillary, but everything else.
Yeah.
And then put him in charge of it? Yeah, you're just part of it, too.
Yeah. They gave Hillary a pass. They gave,
Yep.
They were part of the, when they found Anthony Weiner's emails on Uma Abedin's laptop, or the vice versa. Peter Strzok's at one of the foundations of the Fusion GPS fake dossier. Then he's paving the way. He actually signed the document that initiated all of this roller coaster, or this avalanche against Trump. Then what's the dossier? It was used the dossier was front and center as key supposed evidence to initiate unmasking of American citizens caught up in. So see, here's what they were doing. They were wiretapping Kislyak. Okay, he's a diplomat. It's normal to have wiretaps against foreign diplomats that have anything to do with the United States. That's normal. But it's almost like they knew that there was a chance that Flynn would reach out, because why? It's part of a transition team. So knowing that's used as further greasing or paving of the way to make this even more slippery and more easily attainable. So they use that to then they unmask Flynn, and then then Samantha Powers is in there, and she's been shown to have unmasked at least one person a day for the course of of a year, so add that up. All of this was made and then Obama signs in an order literally hours or days before he exits office, and Trump takes the office to make all information more easily attainable and shared between countless intelligence agencies. So you have a situation here that was set up and primed to entrap and to ensnare innocent people and use the intelligence agencies as weapons against an incoming administration. Everybody that sees that and hears that ought to be scared of their government.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little long-winded there.
That's all right.
I tend to.
Preach, brother. Preach.
So anyways, yeah, so if you don't have anything else on that, we can go ahead and let's just knock all the political side out here, Dave, and then we can get into...
Okay.
There's
We're
one
going to go
more.
next.
Yeah, our next one here is this it? With Hannity?
Okay.
Yeah, here's another good one, guys. Sean Hannity ties into the same situation we've been talking about. Let's listen to this.
Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Let me start with John Solomon, who will join us in a minute. Let's start with all of these revelations. Wray and Peter Strzok and all of these figures. Hillary Clinton supporters, Trump haters.
I think we now know that the Mueller investigation is illegitimate and corrupt. And Mueller has been using the FBI as a political weapon. And the FBI has become America's secret police. Secret surveillance, wiretapping, intimidation, harassment, and threats. It's like the old KGB that comes for you in the dark of the night, banging through your door.
By the way, this is not a game. This is not hyperbole you're using here.
No, ask Paul Manafort. They came for him and broke through his front door.
And if it can happen to him, Greg,
it can happen to all of us. Absolutely. The FBI is a shadow government now. It has become highly politicized. Peter Strzok is the perfect example of it. He led both the Hillary Clinton investigation and, until recently, the Mueller investigation. This is a guy who has corrupt political motives. We now know it. The Congress has the emails, but he's the tip of the iceberg. There are others, especially Andrew Weissmann, and as you've pointed out, Jeannie Wray.
Pam, you're the Attorney General of Florida. I have been laying out a case, and it just keeps growing by leaps and bounds. And in fact, I am saying with the surveillance, the unmasking, and the leaking of raw intelligence, we now have some members. I want to be very clear. I think the vast majority of our intelligence community, our FBI, they are good people that serve us and do a great job and keep us safe. But we have some that are using the powerful tools of intelligence. They have weaponized it, as in the case of General Flynn. And we have now criminalized and politicized at the highest levels, starting with James Comey and Mueller and his band of merry, Trump haters, criminalizing and politicizing the Justice Department and justice in America. How dangerous is this?
Well, Sean, you and Greg have laid out an incredible case every night. And here's why it's so important. As an Attorney General, to me, the Justice Department, and as it should be to the rest of the country, should exhibit the height of objectivity. They should be objective in everything they do for good reason, because this is all about the rule of law. Everything that we fight for as state attorneys general every single day of our careers. And then to see this happen, and the way you're laying it out, it would be so easy to find a team. As you said, there are so many great people in the Justice Department.
Pam, let me ask you this.
These people that shouldn't be donating to political campaigns, they could whack them off the list of being involved right out off the bat. Then we have Strzok. Everything you've laid out about Strzok, Lisa Page's girlfriend, Weissmann, who the Sally Yates email alone praising her for defying the President of the United States, who was her boss. So that's what's so troubling, this team that has been assembled. When Sean, you and Greg have laid out the perfect case why they shouldn't be on the team,
right,
and there are good people out there.
How else do you explain that the FBI can interview Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills, and even though they lied in the documents,
we proved it,
they were not charged with lying to the FBI?
Flynn was.
Flynn was, because he deviated fractionally from the tape-recorded conversation the FBI obtained illegally of his discussion with a Russian ambassador. I mean, that just underscores the rampant corruption here by the government.
Wait, when
Well,
you
Ann,
have,
can I add to that?
Pam, go ahead.
Yeah, let me add to the Mike Flynn thing. Okay, not only they have him, they're using him, obviously flipping him as a witness, which we all know is common to do, but this is a man who now has lied to the vice president. They've saying he's lied to the FBI, and they're using his son, hanging his son over his head, to force him to be a witness.
By the way, tell us what we want to hear, or, well, we may have to go after your son.
It's extortion, it's threats, it's bribe. When you and I do it, it's illegal and we're thrown behind bars. When the government does it, they applaud themselves.
This is the biggest corruption we have ever seen in terms of our justice system, I believe, in our lifetime. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Great work, both of you.
Justice system, or is it
Corruption system.
the new government-mandated mafia?
Yeah. Those are scary terms,
That's
man.
exactly what the mafia and the mob does.
Do you hear what Greg Jarrett said
These
there?
kind of things.
Greg Jarrett nailed it. I mean, think about this, guys. I mean, you're talking like, this is, I mean, you don't read about this stuff here in America. You guys ever watch any good, docudramas about Russia and the KGB and the way that they handle things? That is exactly, guys. I mean, it's.
Yep.
I don't know if, not to invoke movies here, but it's literally like a Jason Bourne movie.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Like, we're going to take you out before you uncover and take us out. We're going to corrupt. In the case of Michael Flynn, we're going to entrap through trickery and bribery,
Yep.
and then once we've got you on this minuscule thing, we're going to dangle other corrupt things over your head to basically coerce you into flipping on something. So, guys, it was just amazing. Horrible.
And here's what the problem is, right? Those movies were made for entertainment, not for how business should be conducted in the government.
It's almost like they went, oh, yeah, well,
that's a good idea. We can do that. We can do that.
Yeah. So we got this department doing this, paying this department off. Backhanded, underhanded, under the table stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's scary, and it's just like, it's I don't even have the words for it. It just blows my mind that every week it's like some new revelation that this just keeps getting worse and worse. But the further worse it gets on our own institutions, the more exonerated the Trump administration and the campaign has become, in my opinion. And you know what they're doing. They come out, collusion is the parameter. So it's dangerous. They give a special counsel, they give Mueller a parameter. Parameter is this: the undermining of this past election through collusion with Russia, Russian meddling in our election, and then a side note was possible connections with the Trump campaign. Okay? Mueller's well outside of that. What kind of indictments does he have? He's got Manafort on money laundering. He's got Flynn on lying to the FBI about a conversation that clearly is legal with Kislyak because it's a transition. They've got Papadopoulos on lying to the FBI about something else that has none of this has anything to do with Russian ties to Trump and Russian ties to the campaign and collusion to overthrow a government. So now, since they've exhausted all of that ridiculousness, now they're trying to pivot and they're trying to show obstruction. But once again, I've been saying this for weeks. Dave knows this. I know this. You've got a situation where all of this, all of where they think they've got something on all of these people like Papadopoulos and Manafort and Flynn, and they're trying to get Trump, and this investigation in general is what? Predicated on fake, false news, predicated on the weaponization of our own intelligence agencies and the FBI used against the American people to collude to basically change the outcome of an election and ruin an incoming presidency. There's the collusion, there's the corruption, and that's what needs to be investigated.
Yeah. And especially whenever you think of the justice system being a part of this, a lesson we all need to learn, government part of this as well, much more so especially for what's going on today, is we cannot allow our biases, allow our prejudices to dictate the outcome of what we see. Right? We have to allow the evidence to lead us to a proper conclusion.
Right.
And that's the whole job of police departments, the FBI, the justice system as a whole. You have the evidence. Follow the evidence.
Follow the facts.
To the proper conclusion of that evidence.
Which is the truth.
Exactly.
We're trying to get to the truth.
Absolutely. And here, in all these political arenas that we've been talking about here for the last 36 minutes today, and the weeks prior to, we come up to it, okay, well, Trump got into the office. We don't understand how Trump got in the office. There must have been some sort of outside influence. And so we're going to try to dig up all this outside influence and put together a story that doesn't fit together, doesn't fit the evidence, and try to get people to believe that. And we see it in political arena today, and we do it in our own lives. When we come to the Bible, people say, "Oh, well, you can be saved by faith alone," because that's what so many people teach. And so when I read through the scriptures, that's exactly what I believe.
Yeah.
But when you go through the scriptures and without a bias and only what the scriptures teach, you don't come away with that. And so we just got to be careful with carrying our biases into every area of our lives, whether it's political, whether it's religion, whether it's how I deal with other people. When I have that open bias with somebody who looks different than me, we call that prejudice. And we won't stand for it. But when it comes to political, when it comes to law, when it comes to Bible, well,
A double standard.
Absolutely.
Well, and to tie in real quick, and then we'll pivot to the other stuff here, and we'll exit out of the political hour and into a little bit of some faith and situations. But, I have a little bit different take, and it's taken weeks and months for me to finally come up with this assessment. It's along the same lines of what you said.
Okay.
But the Dems have always said that where we're at with this investigation, and it's almost like they just didn't want to accept the loss. They didn't want to accept the fact that Hillary lost and Trump won.
Right.
Okay, there is some truth to that, but it wasn't predicated, in my opinion, on necessarily that they believe that let's be honest. There is an element of the kooky left, some of the quacky far left that probably are like, you know what? Those Russians must have got into those voting machines, and they must have changed about 50% of the votes because that's what happened. Okay. I would almost buy into that and like give somebody like that a platform more than the majority of what the Democratic Party has really done. What they've really done is they've come into this. They know that they lost, and I think the writing on the wall is that knowing that Trump was fixing to come in and seize control of this government, and it was going to be blatantly obvious just how corrupt and just how much weaponization had been going on in all these agencies, and the truth was fixing to be uncovered in a lot of ways, I think they decided to tie Trump to this situation to do damage control and to try to get him impeached and put out of office before all this revelation. So it isn't just, David, isn't just a situation where they believe that they lost and that somehow it's a that they believe it because of Russia and that Trump did something. I think down deep, I think they know that there is nothing there, and that the will to cover up and to protect is more important. Save face is more important than the revelation of the truth, and that they will do anything, including and up to ruin people's lives. There could be even. I've always said that Hillary's tied to.
But isn't it making them look worse than
what it would have?
To save face, yeah.
Well, if they can accomplish their goals faster, and if they, think about this. If they could, there's two sides of a race here: the GOP and the truth. A lot of the truth and the principles are coming, and there's a crossroads. And whoever gets to the Dems and the kooky left and the deep state's trying to get Trump impeached before the GOP and the truth cross the line first, and whoever shows, so it's a back and forth. It's the biggest horse race in history, and whoever wins that, and I think it's too late. I think it's too late. I think that there's too much there. There's too much organic traction. There's a lot of actual public concern now, and because of good people like Hannity and Tucker and all this other stuff, that this will not fade. This is only going to accelerate, and there's going to be a huge shakeup in the FBI and the intelligence agencies over the next few weeks and months. Mark my word, it's going to probably get worse before it ever gets better. You can't shake out the evil and the corruption and the clear lack of moral integrity from the government that exists today without there being repercussions, and we're seeing it. We're seeing a lot of people sell out. We're seeing a lot of people threatening violence, threatening suits, threatening corruption, threatening everything that you could think of to keep this quiet, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. All right, spoken my piece.
All right.
Dave, take it.
Hey, just another quick shout out to all those people who are watching. No reason to sit back and just listen to us two chat.
Yeah, let's hear from you.
If you've got any insight or anything you want to say, go ahead and live chat. I promise you won't be belittled at all. And if anybody is doing any belittling, we'll ban them. We'll throw the ban hammer down.
Even
on
if you're a Democrat.
Anybody, huh? All right. I guess kind of still in some political arenas. We have just found out that the Supreme Court has allowed the Trump ban for the travel Trump ban to that it's legal. It can be done, and so it will be enforced, and the lawsuit brought up against it dismissed. Now, should we ban people from coming into the United States? Shane?
Okay, well, I was hoping you would finish that statement. Should we ban people coming into the United States, and then let's finish that sentence, from known terrorist organizations in known areas and known countries that want to commit terrorism and commit harm against the great nation? Absolutely 100%. And the other reason we should, Trump's travel ban does one thing. It slows the process up. It was sped up during the Obama administration. He took people unvetted into this country in a lot of ways. There was a general vetting that happened, but it wasn't done thoroughly. How can we accept refugees from countries who don't even have established governments, such as the Syrian civil war that's happened for the last number of years? We were taking countless Syrian refugees. It's the same situation that Europe's dealt with for the last 3 to 5 years. That open border process saw the greatest mass exodus since World War II. And then Obama, on top of that, made it worse because he wouldn't even define he defined the red line. Assad used gas, and they wouldn't go in there and defend their sovereign territory. So all these people had to flee. I don't blame them for fleeing, but inside of that was also Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these other bad elements. Okay, well, let's don't vet them. Yeah, we'll just come on in. And so when Trump comes in, puts his foot down, and says no, and then all of a sudden he's anti-Islam, he's anti this or that.
Right.
So sorry, got long-winded.
No, that's exactly, I think, perfect points on this. And from what I have read, that it doesn't stop those people who already have their visas from these countries from coming over.
Yeah.
It just limits those people who are seeking now to be able to come over. And I think it's wise to give us time to go through the process of allowing these people to come in, because we need to protect ourselves. No other country has such open borders as we do, that just allow willy-nilly anybody to come in like this. You know, you cross borders illegally in some other countries, you're put in prison for life, if not killed.
Yeah, well, look at Mexico, case in point. The most porous, promoted border between us and Mexico. Mexico promotes that. Doesn't care, doesn't try to stop people from exiting their country, coming here. But go to their southern border between them and, Venezuela or wherever it is down south.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not getting into Mexico the same way that – it's funny how they're hypocrites. Mexico is hypocritical in this instant. They definitively and staunchly fight and protect their border to the south, but don't give a crud about people fleeing their country to come to the United States, and when we want to do the same. So, yeah, you got to have borders.
We're horrible people for trying to talk about building a wall to separate Mexico from the United States. Yet, however, Mexico has a wall on the southern half of
Exactly.
their border,
Great
stopping
point.
those from Central America to come up into Mexico. It's just
Great
unbelievable.
points, yeah.
Another really neat, I guess, revelation is this deal that Trump announced yesterday, that moving of the embassy over there in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and
Awesome.
has been sparked some outrage. In the video here, you see this picture of some Palestinians who are out there and holding up some signs to move your embassy into your own country,
Burning Trump.
not
Yeah.
ours.
Mhm.
However, it is in their country anyhow to begin with, and but they just don't want anything to do with it at all. But what does an embassy do?
Well, that's a great point and great question. I mean, I kind of want to pivot a little bit on that question, Dave.
Okay.
If you're going to give me a minute on that, is why has it been like that? You know, I haven't done a lot
Yeah.
of research on this, but it's simple. I do know that past administrations have considered moving the embassy back to Jerusalem where it belongs, but that it was always used politically as like an olive branch and a political pawn, or kind of a leverage point to kind of insinuate and institute some kind of peace arrangement between the Palestinians and Israel.
Right.
And it's never worked. And so all the naysayers now say that the fact that if Trump does this, it's going to create and incite more violence. Well, here's the facts. The Palestinians don't need a reason to hate Israel any more than they already hate them. And the fact that you move an embassy back to where it's morally and ethically supposed to be, they don't need another reason to incite violence. That's kind of like saying, well, how did we offend ISIS today? And we need to make sure that we didn't do something to incite more violence. Guys, ISIS and the people that follow that extreme version of the Quran hate you regardless. It doesn't matter how good a person you are, how bad a person you are. They hate you for a reason. You can't do anything more than that to make them hate you anymore. So I don't understand or agree with the people that say, well, we can't stand up for principle and justice now and truth because that might incite more violence. If principle dictates the fight, the outcome is irrelevant. And it's about time we had an administration stand up and act that way.
Yeah. Because the battle is not going to end for those who are Muslim, unless everybody converts to Islam.
Yeah.
And the battle isn't going to end for the Palestinians unless they control all of this area, and Jerusalem included. And that's what the whole deal is. You know, they're wanting this back and the whole border fight. But you know, an embassy is there for outreach. It's there for help, really. For those who are desiring to come to the United States, that's where you begin the process.
Right, and it's sovereign territory,
right?
United States territory, soil in another country, and it also, Dave, it projects our presence as such. So in those foreign areas, just like when Ambassador Stevens got killed in Libya, we had a sovereign. That is sovereign soil. That is, guys, and that's what makes me sick. Sorry to pull you off that. We should defend our embassies like we would if there was a city block in Washington, PA under attack by some unknown forces. You don't think that all the local and state and possibly even federal law enforcement would not show up to defend actual city block in the United States? So why wouldn't we defend staunchly the same amount of land overseas that is the embassy?
Right. Because that's what that land is.
Yep.
And embassies are good for business, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's places where U.S. citizens who are abroad can go to for assistance. That's places for those people who are in that country who want to come to the United States can go to for help in those things. And if there's an area that, there is contention for, why not move it to a place that is proven safe? I mean,
that's one reason. Yeah.
This area is, Prime Minister Netanyahu has done a very good job with his
he's awesome,
military to protect Jerusalem and to be at the United States side even whenever we were contentions with them.
Yeah.
Was very careful in his wording of things and in his address to the government a couple years ago whenever he was
You
here.
want to get chills, guys? Go Google or YouTube when he addressed Congress a couple years ago, and he was against the Iranian nuclear deal, and he came here against Obama and Kerry's and Joe Biden's wishes and stood in front of Congress. And I'm not kidding you. I watched that from start to finish, and I remember watching Benjamin Netanyahu, and I remember thinking how much I would love for this country to have a leader that would stand up and call it what it is and say what it is and have the truth and conviction behind what he believed, just like Benjamin did. Man, what a great guy that is. So,
absolutely.
What else?
We'll take that down. The other thing that we have here is kind of a not so much a political piece, but more of a biblical piece on a piece of antiquity that was discovered, which comes about the 6th century A.D., and it is a letter that was written, they believe, from Jesus Christ to James, which was technically his half-brother.
Right.
We have in our 27 books of the New Testament in the Bible the book of James, which was written by him, but this is a letter written to him. And it's one of the oldest pieces of manuscript that they did not believe existed. Not a copy, but the original from that time period. Not the original that was written by Jesus, but the original in this time frame. And so there's all kind of people who are excited about it, other people who are upset about it, saying that it's a fake. It does come a lot later than the existence of Jesus and James. But it's just interesting, a neat find. And I haven't seen a whole lot from the translation of it for what it teaches. You can Google this article and find out some of the things that they've brought out about it, and it talks about a discussion of the calls James his brother. But what teachings are in it, I haven't seen translated yet. So that'll be interesting to see what comes of it later on.
Is there video on that, Dave, or we didn't have video?
No, there is no video that I had seen about it yet. But we'll be watching out for that for the future to see what this contains.
Nice.
And it's always good, anytime there's the Gnostic Gospels, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Thomas, and others, that you've got to be careful when you're reading over, because a lot of times it's proven that those things were written much later than the existence of those individuals to whom it's named. It wasn't actually written by Thomas, by Mary. Judas is another one of these Gnostic Gospels. But it's interesting to what it was going on in that world today for what was being taught by these people. And some of these things are heretical. Some of these things go against, without a doubt, plain biblical teachings of the Bible. And some of them help to give some insight for those things. So it's going to take some time for them to translate the entirety of this document and to see what comes of it.
Very interesting stuff, and I mean, every time that something like this is uncovered and brought to the public's attention, I just, I always think back, Dave, to like apologetics and proof of Christ and proof of the Bible and proof of everything that a lot of maybe a significant portion of society wants to kind of, disregard and to look over and dilute. But the facts are the facts, man. And the more time goes by, the more proof there is that that Christ walked this earth, that Jesus walked this earth, and that that he was here, and there's it's just amazing, the scientists, the atheists, the segment of people that want to basically say that like you said that we just happened or whatever, that's just not the case. There's so much overwhelming evidence.
Faith does not, and it never intended to be, a leap in the dark.
Right.
That I just have to believe beyond all evidence. I have to believe, kind of like what we talk about, this bias and this prejudice that exists. I just have to believe no matter what evidence shows me. But faith, even the scriptures tell us, is based on evidence. Hebrews 11.
Right.
And 1.
Faith comes by hearing, and
and hearing by the word of God.
Yeah. Those are not. Yeah, and those are factual things. That's not a.
Right.
That's not a. Like you said, it's not a. It's not a leap.
Right.
It's just choosing to believe in what's present, and it is provable.
To follow all that evidence.
Yeah.
And all that evidence points to a God, points to the fact that these characters in the Bible weren't just fictional characters, but these were actual people, historical people who existed, and these events did happen.
Yeah.
And because of what the Bible teaches us, that we have a way to be redeemed back to the Creator, and so that one day we can all have the hope of spending eternity with Him one day if we obey it and if we believe it. And you can't see it in the camera, but I'm pointing to my Bible that's sitting right there on the counter. You guys are wondering what I'm staring at, what I'm looking at, what I'm pointing at.
There it is.
But that's evidential faith.
Absolutely.
Based on fact and evidence.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about the Truth here. The Truth Hour, we try to, Dave does as well as myself throughout the week, we try to find relevant news articles and information that gives us a few minutes of good relevance in our faith. And heck, last few weeks we've had good luck with that. I mean, we had Museum of the Bible a few weeks ago. Something else we could have talked about. We got a couple minutes. We might as well. We don't have anything to queue up, but we can at least discuss it.
Sure.
The baker that refused to bake the cake for the gate,
yes.
It's in the Supreme Court right now.
Yes.
And they have not...
just some quick background. You remember a number of years ago, probably 4 years or so ago maybe, there was a homosexual couple who went to a Christian bakery and asked them to bake a cake for their wedding. And the owners of that establishment, in their Christian faith, very politely, from all that I can read on the situation, asked not to bake that cake for them. They refused to do so, and because of such, a huge lawsuit that was brought up against them, hundreds of thousands of dollars in this lawsuit. They end up having to fold up their business simply because they did not want to do this. It went against their faith and their principles. And, people were outraged. Well, how can you refuse a service to somebody? But in all other religions, right, we would never go to a Muslim restaurant or owned business and ask them to, if pork's not on the menu, hey, make me a pulled pork bacon filled sandwich.
Man, that sounds good, bud.
Well, we don't serve that here. We don't serve, because pork, we don't. Well, you're refusing me service, and I'm going to sue you. That'd come back on me.
Yeah.
You shouldn't ask somebody to do something that's against their religion and against their beliefs. But when it comes against Christianity, we always squash Christianity.
Yeah. There's so many sides of this, and we got a minute or two left here. Let's chat about that.
Sure we do. It's all free time.
What was really ridiculous about this? Okay, so so this gay couple comes into this bakery, and they're going to try to patronize this gentleman's business. And he, once they disclose what it's about and what he wants to do and what they want, he decides and he makes an assessment and a judgment based on his moral convictions and says that he would just as soon pass, and he's respectful about it. Why not then at that point, speaking for the gay couple, why not just walk out the door nicely and say, hey, there's things that I don't believe in and what I wouldn't want to do, and I have the right to object against something. And why wouldn't they have just taken that situation, walked out of that gentleman's business, and went and Googled another bakery and got their cake? No harm, no foul, let it go. You know what ended up happening? No, they sue the guy. They dragged the guy through the regular courts. It's been all through that. You know what? They had to sell his business. He was on Fox yesterday or day before. Had to sell his business. Him and his wife have lost 40 to 60% of their income because of that business. That was their bakery was the bread and butter, and now they're in the Supreme Court. Part of me loves that part. Let it get up there, and then pray God that because Neil Gorsuch is on there, and we've got a more of a neutral, down the line kind of a balance between the justices now. And if we get one more that trade its hands, and it's going to be balanced in the GOP's favor. But why couldn't have they just let no harm, no foul? But now that nowadays, the LGBT QQQQ TTTT BBB has to stand up for everything and basically, and then ruin people.
Yeah, and I don't know. The Scripture tells us we can't know the hearts of people. Only God knows that. But it seems to me. I'm going to look at the fruits of these people, that it was never about going to this bakery and getting this cake because they had such wonderful cake. In my mind,
so what are you saying? What do you think
they knew the history of this bakery, knowing that this man was
Entrapment?
was an outspoken conservative Christian, and they did not like that.
Yeah,
that
so
went against their homosexual beliefs. They wanted to call him out about it. They knew he would refuse, and they knew they could bring up a lawsuit against him.
That's even worse if that's true. And I believe that. There's probably good relevance to that. Wow.
Yeah. And you see that with
now they're heroes to the like I said, they're heroes to the transgenders, they're heroes to the LGBT, they're everything.
It's a militist
the militarization of the weaponization of the LGBT.
It's militant.
Militant.
Right? Just militant belief. We see atheism, militant belief that, I just can't believe my atheism, but I've got to wipe out all forms of Christianity that are out in my view. And that's kind of the same thing that this homosexual groups have done. They've become militant that, if there is a group of people, Christian or otherwise, who don't believe and don't support me, because you have to support me in my actions. It's probably just the mailman. Then you need to go away. You need to be destroyed because you don't support me.
Yeah, it's
and
horrible.
It shouldn't be so. If you want to live in that sin, even though it's against God's word, I guess that's your decision. That's the freedom that we have.
Well, and what are we supposed to do as Christians? We're just supposed to call
crush.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just supposed to call things out. I mean, at least declare truth. But we're not to judge. We're not to enforce necessarily. But we are supposed to be, advocates for the truth, advocates for Scripture.
But I'm not going to belittle you, and I'm not going to beat you down. I'm just going to say, this is what the Scripture teaches, and I care about you, and I love you.
Because you know what it all boils down
to?
It's all sin.
Right.
It's all sin. I mean, I struggle with sin. I'm sure you struggle with sin. We're all sinners. We've all fallen short. So there's desires that manifest, and then people seize on those desires. It turns into sin. It's a real simple calculation and process. And being of that mindset and of that situation where if you struggle with your identity as your sexuality, you're no different than somebody that struggles with any other sin and temptation and desire. It is what it is. It doesn't mean that you get a get out of jail free pass and that somehow that you're legitimized because it's politically accepted on one side of the aisle and not the other. It just means that it's just as relevant as any other sin, and it needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And Cheyenne says in here, she says, because they think they have the right to take the money just because the people don't believe in homosexuality. That's a good point as well. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's you've got to go away. If you don't believe what I believe, if you're not who I am and you don't accept me who I am, you need to go away. And that's this whole mental state that I believe we have so prevalent in society today is that idea that if we can't agree on something,
if we can't agree to disagree,
right? Exactly.
So the good old debate, the good old sit down and what am I trying to say? To open dialogue to try to discuss and have an open forum for facts and truth. But here's what usually happens, and we can LGBT and Planned Parenthood, all these people that believe in all these atrocities and certain things, they're all left. They're all Democrats. I don't think you'll ever find a true conservative, voting for any of those things or being a part of those things. So that's not calling out a side. That's stating the facts. But you won't have that situation happen on the right. You won't have anybody advocate for those things. And I've lost my train of thought. I had a good point, but I dove off into
where you were going
somewhere. So yeah. So and hey, we could actually bring this up in a bigger segment at some point. But guys, we have pushed over about 4 to 5 minutes, and we do appreciate it. And thanks again for everybody's attendance. Thanks, Cheyenne. I don't know who else was on here. If anybody else is on here, we'd appreciate a shout-out so we could at least acknowledge you being here.
Yeah, there was a group of people on here, the quiet group.
The quiet listeners.
The quiet listeners.
Yes. Wish I was part of that. But I'm not quiet.
Y'all know better than that. Don't forget, every Thursday, 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, we're here to talk about these things, and we encourage you to join in, to chat with us, comment on this video, email us at truthoutradio@gmail.com. And if you have any political things, biblical things that come up throughout the week that you want us to discuss on this show, let us know.
So I can fit it into our research and get it fit into the show. I'd love to do it.
Absolutely.
We can fit you in, and we'll promote. We'll give you a punchline in there that hey, so and so said or brought this up. We'd be glad to discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you don't, we'll just keep going with what we got.
There we go.
We don't have any problems with that either. So.
We'll keep having all kind of fun with it.
Absolutely. So, hey, guys, thanks a lot to everybody that joined us today. We're blessed to have you. We're blessed to be able to sit here and do this and freedom in this country. God bless each and every one of you. Reach out to us if you need anything. And until next week, stay real and stay in the truth. And now it's time to play the drums like I always do.
All right, guys. Peace out. God bless. Close your eyes.